All right, this story is hilarious, and it's perfect for the WNBA offseason. As we all know, the Indiana Fever are the team that generates the most interest in the WNBA, clearly because they have Caitlin Clark. They also have a new head coach, and Stephanie White will take over next season. The Fever are already looking forward to that. They put out a post on social media indicating as much, talking about the new era and the new coach already getting ready for next season. It had Stephanie White, diagramming plays in front of some Fever players. And the reason this has become a thing is because the players in front of her, well, there were 6 of them. And the WNBA draft, the expansion draft coming up, you can protect 6 players from the Golden State Valkyries. Each team, each franchise can. So fans try to put 2 and 2 together, seeing the 6 players that Stephanie White was talking to and thinking those must be the 6 players that the Indiana Fever protected. Now, I'm not so sure the social media team is privy to such information. Perhaps it was an indication. Maybe they didn't think it was going to blow up this much. But the fact that it was deleted makes me believe they weren't ready for the backlash that transpired from said post. But of course, there are screenshots. And as you can see, the 6 players featured were Temi Fagbenle, Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Lexie Hull, and Nalissa Smith. No surprise other than maybe Nalissa Smith, but perhaps if we're living in this speculative world, Stephanie White feels like she could get the most out of her, or they were trying to protect her trade value. Nonetheless, the WNBA now getting some of the vibes that the NBA has gotten in free agency and off seasons in the past, where fans can't stop speculating about every little thing. Again, the social media person, the people creating that graphic, could have absolutely zero communication with the front office, and it could have been a total coincidence. They weren't thinking that far ahead, but that is the world that we now live in, with the attention on the WNBA, with the attention on the Indiana Fever. Now, perhaps the next season and the 6 players was an indication. Maybe they do. I mean, I can't tell you for sure, but my guess is the idea that it was deleted doesn't make it that they were trying to bury the evidence, because if they were trying to communicate it and convey it, they would stand on it and leave it up there. Instead, it makes me believe that it just happened to be a coincidence, but who knows? Either way, it's really not that important. It was just a thing that they threw up and put online. But when you are talking about the 6 players that the Fever are going to protect, I do think that grouping made sense, right? I mean, you clearly, Caitlin Clark. I mean, remember in Avengers Infinity War where Tony Stark is looking at Doctor Strange and he's thinking of all the different scenarios, or he goes through all the different scenarios that they could actually beat Thanos in. And he's like, how many do we win in? And all these various million ones. He's like, 1. There's not even one scenario ever out there in all the multiverses where Caitlin Clark wouldn't be on the list. Aaliyah Boston, same thing goes for her. Kelsey Mitchell's going to be a free agent, but we know the Fever really want to bring her back. They've been celebrating her accomplishments in China. They just posted an hour of her highlights online. They can core her if they have her rights and keep her under contract. So it makes sense that they'd keep that big 3 together. Obviously, Lexie Hull falls into that group as well. Hull is a glue type player, plays hard, gets to the loose balls, takes on the tough assignments. She may be a bit undersized, but she still rises to the occasion from an effort standpoint. And she's become a bit of a knockdown shooter as a result, which you need, of course, playing off of Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, and the way that, you're going to get the ball kicked back out to you. You need somebody to knock down those shots. Temi Fagbenle is a winning attitude kind of player, plays hard on defense, really ran the floor well on the season, did a nice job converting Caitlin Clark's passes early in the year. Didn't do as well later in the year with that. Blew a lot of layups and bunnies, but I think part of that was because she had a hand injury. So we'll see if Temi is in that grouping. And then, of course, there's Nalissa Smith, who would be the most controversial player on the graphic, given on-court stuff. She's not the best decision maker with the basketball. Motor comes into question at times, not really a shooter. However, there was also the other stuff. She would seem to have an issue with Christy Sides. Doesn't seem to stay away from social media at times. And then the thing with Dejanay Carrington and the Sun and the Fever. But maybe Stephanie White sees the talent that Alyssa has, and she clearly has talent, and thinks, I can get the most out of Alyssa. Or maybe the Fever think, hey, we're not going to lose her for nothing. Let's protect her because she does have trade value. I don't know. But again, that's all based off of a graphic, and there's no way to know. And I would suspect that, that was just speculation off of that. But it does make sense. Those 6 players do make some sense. So I just figured it was a good time to talk through the possible protections that the Fever would make for the expansion draft, which is coming up on not Monday, the draft, but they have to submit their players by Monday, and the draft coming up in December. I mentioned Lexie Hull. She was putting some work in, continuing to work on that shot. And you see, obviously that can pay off for her. I'm not going to play this whole thing, but they had a video of her doing a drill where she was trying to, make consecutive shots over a period of time. I don't know the exact rules of what they did, but you see, she was shooting with a timer, and she clearly is working on the things that she needs to work on. She's committed. She is a kind of player that you would want to protect and keep, and she clearly also has a sweet stroke. As you see there, she has been putting in that work to become a sharpshooter, which is exactly what you need off of Caitlin Clark. Because to me, this team has a core 4, right? Who I would protect at any and all costs. Clark, Boston, Mitchell, Hull. It's those other 2 spots that are more intriguing, but Katie Lou Samuelson gave them nothing last year. She's supposed to be a shooter. She didn't shoot the ball well. She can't really defend on the perimeter. Too slow-footed to do that. Erica Wheeler did a nice job as a vet, but Caitlin Clark's going to take the bulk of those minutes. Dantas was brought over in the middle of the season, so wasn't really, part of their long-term plans necessarily. Berger didn't really play much. Christy Wallace started at the beginning of the season, then everybody was begging for her to be benched. So when you look at the roster, the 6 on the graphic do make a lot of sense. I'm not saying, again, that that's definitely the case, because we don't have that on the record. It is not confirmed, but let's call it a little Fever fun, right? I mean, it's an all-season topic. It's perfect for that. A little bit of Fever fun. We can have that. And shout out to the social team if they're getting in trouble today. No big deal, right? It's only, again, a little Fever fun, or maybe feverish speculation.